So, Lovecraft Country. Phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal show. First post I'm making about it, first breakdown I'm doing on it. Because, for one, I'm trying to get a little bit more consistent with my breakdowns, so that way that I can kind of capture my energy or my reaction to it versus, kind of sitting on it and then, I end up talking myself out of not doing the breakdown. So instead, I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into this Lovecraft Country. So, and currently it's episode 7, and the title of this episode is "I Am," and the focal character of this episode is Hippolyta. And I've been waiting for her moment to shine. I've been waiting to see the story behind her. Quite a few people have read the book that I ran into that really love the show. I have not. I was unaware of a book about it, and now that there's a show, I don't want to go and read the book because then I'll be comparing the book or expecting the show to be just like the book. So this is just all fresh, we approaching this. This is my first time really hearing anything about Lovecraft Country, just everything. But one thing that I will say for sure, looking at this show, all I can think about is Bobby Hemmett. It's just Bobby Hemmett vibes all throughout this show because so many things he's talked about for years pertaining to mythology, you could just see it all in this show. And when I have discussions most time with people, especially when it comes to, black people's origin, where we come from, our spirituality and all of that, a lot of times the simplest way for me to explain it is that the mythologies, our truths, or our history lies somewhere in the mythologies. And this episode just it really touched me in so many different ways, man, because I mean I could just relate to this on so many levels. I cried watching this episode, believe it or not. I mean, it just, I don't know, it touched me, man. But anyway, we're gonna get all into that, the breakdown of this episode. So what we knew was, they had been looking for that query because it had a key in it that had to do with a time machine. And what we also know is Hippolyta had taken it when she went into that house a few episodes back. So now we're seeing what happened with that. And they also giving us the little follow up with Christina and Ruby. With Christina kind of trying to explain to her everything with the, taking the potions and everything and how they can beat other people. And so Christina does go on to tell her that it does involve her family. So I wonder how much did she tell her and if she included Letty in all of that. But I'm assuming she did, but we don't really know because later on when we see Ruby and Letty talking, it's not like Ruby brings that up. And we get hints that Letty is probably pregnant with Teek's baby because of the dream she has and the way that she's been acting. And Letty kind of notices this. She's like, "Oh man, I really might be pregnant." And so when she goes off into the room, she notices the orrery. And the first thing she does is call Tick. Now I think she want to call Tick anyway because she is pregnant. But I mean, it's just another reason to call him and let him know, "Hey, look, Hippolyta has Hiram's orrery. We've been looking for it, and it looks like she opened it. It's some coordinates up here. Maybe we need to figure out where she's going because she could be in danger." And at this time, of course, Tick, he went off to visit his family in St. Louis to see if he could get some information about his mom. The only thing he was able to get was he noticed that that same mark that he has on his back, he saw it on an old photo of his mother. So, all right, so now back to it. So Hippolyta, she goes on this journey, and this is a really powerful episode, especially for women. I don't know if men are as in tune with it. I would hope so, but a lot of women feel really taken by this episode because we can really relate to it a lot. So when Hippolyta goes to the observatory, which is where those coordinates lead her, when she gets to the observatory, she actually figures out from all the equations and everything that she's done, she can actually turn the machine on. And so she does. Now this is very powerful, right? Because the wormhole opens up, Hippolyta gets sucked in. And so when she goes through the wormhole or portal, however you want to call it. She's taken to see this alien like being that's known as the I am. Now, I am is the creator. If you study metaphysics, if you go a little bit further beyond Christianity, you realize the power in the words I am. It's a principle more so than it is a statement. In the Bible it says, "Be still and know that I am God." See, anything added unto I am will be added unto you. Whenever you say the words I am, you bring that energy down to yourself. So when she says I am on the stage dancing with Josephine Baker, and she found herself right there in Paris on stage, amazed that she was there dancing with Josephine Baker. And so right then and there is like, where is she? Is she really in outer space? Is she manifesting this herself? Because if you look carefully, there's additional people in that vision that don't fit that time period. So this is a figment of her imagination, literally, figuratively. And she says some powerful things because it's a journey, and it's more so an inner journey. So she's really on a journey of discovery for herself. It's a self-discovery. It's all about self-realization. Honestly, what you know to be as the rapture, from what we know as Christianity, the rapture is actually, metaphysically speaking, talking about self-realization. It's what happens when you come into realization of who and what you truly are. And that's really like what she really kind of went through, because even in her adventures, when she was in Paris, when she was in France, experiencing that freedom and being around, Josephine Baker, she was able to see things that she wasn't always able to see before. And like Josephine said, for you to be able to see it has to be something that you already seen within yourself. And Hippolyta, she goes on to say one of my favorite quotes of the whole episode. It's probably my favorite quote, where she was like, I feel like they found a smart way to lynch me without noticing the noose. And I can really, really relate to this because I feel like this so much, but it's so hard to articulate and to express that in a way that people can get what you're saying and they themselves not be offended. You know what I mean? And so her just thinking about it, her coming into that realization, it stirs her emotion. And the emotion that you get is anger, it's rage. I mean, whenever you becoming woke, because that's pretty much what this whole episode is. It's like Hippolyta woke up. This is what happened with spiritual enlightenment. This is how you wake up. And this is like your third eye opening. This is basically it in a show form to show you kind of what that experience can be like. And one of the first things you have to come to pass with is your anger, especially being black in America. You have anger, trust and believe against this system. You have to, even if you suppress it really well. And that's what she got to. She came to her anger, and it was like, well, and that's what Josephine asked her. Don't it just make you angry? She said furious. You know what I mean? And from there, it took her on to the next part of her journey. Because now, okay, so now you got to deal with that anger. Because she asked her, so what are you going to do with all that anger? And even before that, she came to terms and saying that, I hate white people. I want to kill white people. And she said that, I hate myself for allowing them to even make me feel so small. A lot of us deal with this conflict and it really rips us apart, but anger just means that you are at war with yourself. There's a conflict that you have not resolved within yourself yet. And I felt like this for a long time. And it's still times that I still feel like this. That's all that anger is. It's just a conflict. Whether you at conflict between your heart and mind, because morally you might feel like it's something that you shouldn't do or you couldn't do. But, maybe ultimately is what you really may have to do. So, these type of things just kind of bring a conflict. And so she had to resolve that. And so that's what she ended up on next, So she had to do that shadow work because it's like, okay, so what we gonna do about the anger? And don't get this twisted. It is a this is a very, very black show. And I'm not just saying it because the majority of the actors are black. But I'm mostly saying it because of the story itself. it's really like our origin myths laid right out in front of you. These are things that are talked about amongst black metaphysicians and black occultists and those who, study the mythology and cosmogenesis. So when you get to looking at that, and if you study those type of things, then this is right up your alleyway. So this anger. So we introduced it to Nawi. And Nawi gave so many jewels. She gave so many jewels. That's why I said I think these are the Amazon warrior women. And when they took their last stance against the French, I think that's what this was representing. But I could be wrong, because at the end of the day, it's not really about who they are particularly, but what it is that she gets from the experience. But she takes this anger and she becomes a warrior. So and when she first gets there, and now it says, after she knocks her down, she's like, let me tell you why you are here and why you must get up. You are here because you did not believe them when they said that you are free to cook their food, free to raise their children, free to work for them. They even lied to you and said that you are free to run the world, but it is still their world. You are here because you knew that all that they offered was the freedom that a well-kept slave could ask for. She said, now I cannot tell you what true freedom is. You have got to find that for yourself. But today you are still afraid to go looking. But I will strip away that fear one blow at a time. That's so powerful. All of that is powerful because it's relevant. It's relevant today in 2020. It was relevant back then in that time that this show was representing. And it's still relevant. It's always going to be relevant. That's really kind of the point of it. You know what I'm saying? And with, true freedom, you got to determine what that is for you. Because, to me, I just want to be able to live and be who it is that I am, and I don't have to deal with any type of repercussions for that. Like I just want to be myself, and that's cool. I just want to be my black self, and I don't need to hide none of my blackness, and I don't got to do anything else. That's how I feel. That's it to me. But it's different for everybody, and a lot of it kind of depend on where you at in life too. So so when she finally win and everything, and she goes out and she go to war, and she get to take all that anger out, and like she said, we are here because we did not believe them when they told us our rage is not ladylike. We did not believe them when they said our violence goes too far. We did not believe them when they told us our hatred for our enemy is not godlike. They say that to women like us because they know what will happen when we are free to hate when we must, free to kill when we must, free to bring destruction when we must. See, our ancient people were a matriarchal people. We very much respected the feminine energy. Today's society, Western society and culture, not so much. So a lot of black women can really relate to this. They like to tell us that we angry, we savage, or we got attitudes, we crazy. They got all types of names for us when we just express our energy. So that's probably why so many women can really, really, really relate to this episode, because just on a soul level, it's heavy. It's heavy. I mean, me myself, I cried tears watching this show, this particular episode, because it hit home to me, and it wasn't. It just felt like everything that I felt on my journey to discovery. Like that's exactly how it felt, and in looking at it, and so even when she did all that and she got that anger out, she was able to say, I am Hippolyta, I am George's wife. And so she had to go to the to something rooted right in her familiar life that she could address. It's like, old ancient Chinese saying is, if you tie a knot, only you can untie that knot. That basically just means whatever is the root cause of your issue, whatever it is, only you can undo that. Only you can heal that. Only you can do that. And so with her sorting out all of that, she had to come to terms with everything that she really truly felt within herself, so that she can be, in a self-realized version of herself. And it kind of made sense though for her to go to George. He was the sci-fi guy. He was their reference in episodes 1 and 2 before he died. For Tick and Letty, he was the reference for them, and he helped to keep them alive in the very beginning. So it made sense for her to go to George also and be able to express what it was she was experiencing with him, and even share that experience with him and taking him with her. But she just said, she realized that, like she told him, she didn't time travel. It wasn't a time traveling machine, or she wasn't visiting other planets, but more so she was interdimensionally traveling. She really was manifesting, because it's an infinite worlds. So whatever it is that you can realize in your mind has to exist in some way, shape, or form. So when you're in a awakened state of self-realization, what's buried in your subconscious, that's what's going to start to surface, and you're going to have to deal with it as it surfaces. That's called your shadow work. You can't avoid it. So if you ever get to a point where you're trying to avoid dealing with your shadow, you're not progressing in your along your path, because that's what you must do. That's what it truly means to be an adventurer. That's why I always say this path here, if you here in this Patreon, we the adventurers. We are venturing. Why? Because we're exploring worlds, ideologies, cultures, a form of thinking and perception, religion, spirituality. This is adventuring. We're venturing into these ideas and all of these different things, and it's expanding our mind. That's what is the key to being an adventurer. Is these experiences are supposed to expand your mind. You gotta remember, Sagittarius is the adventurer, is ruled by Jupiter. And we always think about religion, spirituality, the higher mind, like college, world travel, all of those things with Sagittarius. Why? Because it's ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is the planet of expansion. It's also seen as the lucky one. It's the ruler of the gods, Zeus. So when you're looking at Jupiter, it being the ruler of expansion, then it kind of makes sense when you're just understanding the energy of it. As far as adventure, yeah, that's how you're going to expand your way of thinking. Hey, me being here right now, the worst things I think, if I go to another culture and it's 10 times as worse, I never forget that will forever expand and change my thinking. Because then when I deal with something bad, I might look at it and say, dang, I know there's some people out there who have it way worse. That's why it's important to always be expanding and to always be growing. So, Hippolyta goes on. She continues her adventure with George. And if you notice, the ship looks like Woody. That's how it's clues to let you know she's manifesting all this with her own mind. And so they exploring other worlds and everything. And there's a monologue that plays while they're doing this. And I'm still not sure whose voice it is or where it's from. But I love it, because it says, it starts to talk about black people, and it goes on to say that we are myths. It says, I do not come to you as reality, I come to you as myth, because that's what black people are. Black people are myth. And that's the realest thing I've ever heard. Black people are myth, because you don't know where black people came from. Because in all honesty, they didn't really start calling you black until some decades ago. They had other names for you prior to then, so whoever you were prior to being black has been lost. So it is lost in myth now. All we know is myth. We don't have any facts anymore. A lot of our elders now are gone. They can't even tell us what it is that they know. A lot of us don't even know. So we are myth. In all actuality, a lot of the myths that we know, the worldwide myths, are based on our ancient ancestors. But we don't know that. So therefore, we are the myths. That is her self-realization. That I am said, you've named yourself now. You can integrate within our society. That's all it was. You just had to name yourself. Just had to realize who it is that you are. It's the story of your soul coming to earth. It's the story of how your soul, it's just like in the Matrix. Just like when they go into the Matrix, what you see is the version of yourself that your mind produces. So it's the same thing in this physical reality. It's the version of your mind. It's how you how your mind views yourself that is projected into this world. So you name yourself. You created your avatar, your body, everything about who you are. You did that. You did it. So And with all of this, she's like, with everything that I've learned and everything that I am, how can I fit everything back into that place? And it was only one thing that could allow her to make that decision: love, which was the purest love. It was unconditional love because it was love for her child. It wasn't a love under any condition. She said, D needs me. That's the one thing that transcends all everything in the universe. Remember, and go back to the Matrix. Go back to the very last one where there was the discussion of love. And Neo was asking the program, how can you love? You're a program. He said, you got to go back and watch it. All of these types of movies and these types of stories are just really just telling us, it's just all playing back our own ancient science to us. And I got to give it to HBO. They're doing a good job with these types of stories. Because Westworld is phenomenal. Watchmen is phenomenal. I've yet to do the Watchmen breakdown because if you watch Watchmen, you got to understand that who we are, we're Dr. Manhattan. When you look at the Watchmen and you realize that Dr. Manhattan the whole time he was her husband and he just had forgot who he was, that's really just us. Like, he was doing all that he was doing. He was living all these existences. He was doing all these things. He was a creator of worlds doing all of this. And he just got bored with it and decided he wanted to go back to Earth and pretend to be a human. Why? Because he fell in love. So let that marinate. Because he fell in love. So, but understand, truly, you are the Dr. Manhattan. It's not a coincidence they was just after him to get his DNA because they want his power. Just like every other story that they after your DNA or they after your blood, they after your essence because they want to just be who you are. Point blank period. So you gotta know who you are. That's what it's all about. You just gotta know who you are. You just gotta know the power in yourself. You know? And to kind of close it out, and I suspect that we'll see how this plays out in the next episode. Tick went through that wormhole also. Tick went through that wormhole because I believe we're going to see George in one more episode, which will probably be the next one. So Tick goes through that wormhole and he comes out with a book titled Lovecraft Country, written by George Freeman. So Tick also went in that portal and he went somewhere. I guess we'll find out where. And, Hippolyta shot that cop and that book was left there. Dee's book was left there. So we'll only see how this thing is going to transpire. But I love Lovecraft Country. It's just a lot of metaphysics and occult rolled up into one. It's a lot of myth. It's a lot of Bobby Hemmett too. So if you love Bobby Hemmett and if you really, really have listened to Bobby Hemmett and the way that he talk about certain shows and certain books, because he said a lot about H.P. Lovecraft, especially Cthulhu. So when you really know that, then you can say, okay, I can see that. And like I said, a lot of these other series are kind of on point too. That Watchmen is serious. That Watchmen is serious. Westworld is serious. If you can watch Westworld and understand Westworld, you can know how to create entities. Now, granted, we already create entities. We just don't know it. We name them stress and depression and diabetes and high blood pressure, but we do it. But we're gonna get into that in another segment, but we just gonna wrap this one on up right here. So if you're watching Lovecraft Country, then hit me up and let me know what you think about it. We're gonna watch the next episode next week. So be easy, everybody.